Why did one loud party proposal end with a quiet public serving of divorce papers in my own office building? How did I go from the woman who joked that I had already said yes to my boss to the one standing in a lobby with a custody plan and money orders in my hand while my husband walked away? Can I still say it was just about my career when the law now says something very different? My name is Salamea Quill, and I still think most of what I did that night made sense, at least if you see it from my side. I was not trying to be cruel. I was trying to protect my future. People forget that part when they talk about the rooftop video and the way Lucas looked when he went down on one knee. They only remember his big eyes and my smile, and they act like that single moment tells the whole story of us. I work as a project manager at a creative agency, the kind of place where people wear sneakers with suits and call late meetings quick huddles. My boss, Roland, likes big gestures and risk. He tells everyone that success belongs to the ones who say yes when other people are scared. I heard that line so many times that it started to feel like my religion. Lucas never really fit in that world. He is an engineer, a careful planner, a man who reads manuals. I used to find that cute. Later, I saw it as a weight tied to my ankle. The party was for a big campaign win. We were on the agency rooftop terrace under string lights and fake plants, with music loud enough to make the glasses shake a little on the tables. People were laughing, taking pictures, tagging each other. Jade, my friend from work, was already filming everything on her phone for content, as she always said. Roland made a short speech about brave ideas and called me out by name as the one who kept the team on track. Everyone clapped, and I felt heat in my face, but in a good way. I thought, this is what it means to be somebody. Lucas stood a little apart from the crowd, holding a plastic cup, trying to blend in. He always looked slightly wrong at work events, like he had bought the right shirt but not the right story to go with it. I saw him watching me while Roland spoke. I told myself he should be proud that his girlfriend was the star of the night. Instead, his jaw was tight, and his fingers squeezed the cup so hard I thought it might crack. When the speech ended, the music went up and people moved around again. Someone turned on a cheesy love song by mistake, and everyone laughed. Jade turned her camera toward us and did a silly whisper about romance in the air. I rolled my eyes and posed anyway. I like being seen, I admit that. Then I noticed Lucas walking toward me with a strange, nervous smile. His hand was in his pocket. I think a part of me knew what was coming, but I pushed that thought away. He asked if he could have everyone's attention for a moment. I heard the words, but I did not stop him. People around us made playful sounds and stepped back to make a circle. Jade pointed her phone, delighted. Lucas looked at me, then dropped to one knee. He opened a small box and there was a ring inside, simple and bright under the rooftop lights. He asked if I would marry him. He said we had been together long enough and that he could not imagine life without me. His voice shook and everyone went quiet. I felt the silence like a hand around my throat. All I could think was that this was not the plan. I had just started to be noticed at work, and Roland had hinted about a lead role on a project that would require travel and late nights. A ring in that moment felt like a fence closing around me, right there in front of my boss and my team. My heart beat fast, not with joy but with panic. I smiled because that is what I do when I feel trapped. I told Lucas he was sweet, but that this was not the right time. I said I was already taken, but not in the way he thought. I joked that I had already said yes to Roland, meaning yes to the big project and the crazy hours. A few people laughed in shock. Someone clapped, maybe out of confusion. Roland lifted his glass and made a half bow, and the crowd turned toward him for a second. Lucas stayed on his knee longer than he should have, ring still in his hand, like his brain needed time to catch up. Then he stood up without saying much and closed the box. Later, people told me they felt the air change when I said that line about having already said yes to my boss. At that moment, I only felt relief that the pressure was back off me. I told myself Lucas had chosen the wrong time and put me on the spot, and that whatever came after was his fault. He should have known I would not say yes to something that small in front of something that big. The ride down in the elevator was quiet. The music from the roof faded, replaced by the hum of the cables and a soft buzz from someone's phone. Lucas stood on the other side of the car, still holding the little box. Jade was in the corner pretending to scroll, probably already checking the video she had taken. I looked straight ahead and told myself that anyone who really loved me would understand why I did what I did. I did not look at Lucas's face too long because I did not want that picture stuck in my head. At home in our apartment living room, he finally asked why I had done that to him in front of everyone. I said he had trapped me in a public scene when he knew my career was about to take off. He asked if I had meant what I said about Roland. I told him he was being paranoid and insecure, that of course I meant work, not anything else. I said that if he wanted to be with someone like me, he needed to handle a little discomfort. While he sat on the sofa, still in his button-up shirt, I went to the bedroom and changed my phone password. I told myself it was just good digital hygiene, nothing more. When I came back, I placed the ring box on the TV stand and told him we could talk about it again when our lives were more stable. He stared at the box like it was a piece of broken glass. Later that night, my phone buzzed on the arm of the sofa. For a moment, the screen lit up with a preview from Roland. It was the name of a hotel in the city and a simple line about wanting to celebrate the campaign more privately. There was a little emoji at the end that left no doubt about the tone. Lucas saw the screen before I flipped the phone face down. He asked who it was. I said it was just work, and that Roland trusted me with details because I was responsible. I told Lucas that if he kept questioning me, he would ruin everything I was trying to build for us. He did not answer. He just sat back and stared ahead. After a while, he got up, picked up his own phone from the coffee table, and walked toward the bedroom. When he turned off the light, the glow of his screen was the only thing in the room for a second. I saw a small calendar alert pop up on it before the door closed. It said Cedar Cafe 7:30 p.m. on a day later that week. The video went up the next morning before I had even finished my first coffee. Jade sent me a link and wrote that people were loving it. When I opened it, I saw Lucas on his knee, the ring in his hand, the little circle of faces around us. I heard my own laugh and the line about already saying yes to my boss. Someone had added slow music and a glitter filter, like it was a montage from a show. At the end, the screen froze on Lucas's face, and his eyes looked wider and more lost than I remembered. At the office, the open-plan floor felt different. People turned in their chairs when I walked in. One of the junior designers asked, in a bright voice, if the proposal had been real or just a bit for social media. I said it had been real, but I also said Lucas liked big gestures and did not always think about timing. I told them I had to protect my career and that if a man truly believed in me, he would not put me on the spot like that in front of my boss. They nodded in a way that told me they were unsure but did not want to argue. Roland called me into his glass office before lunch. He told me he had seen the clip and asked if things were okay at home. I said everything was fine and that Lucas was just sensitive. I told Roland I had turned the moment into something useful because now everyone knew I put work first. He said he did not want the agency to look messy and asked if there was anything between us that could be taken the wrong way. I felt heat in my neck when he said that. I told him we were just a strong team and that jealous people always talk. He smiled a little and said he trusted my judgment, but he also said we should be careful where and when we were seen together. After that talk, he brushed my arm as I left and told me he needed me on a new proposal. I took that as proof that I had done the right thing. If I had accepted Lucas's ring, maybe Roland would have chosen someone else. I walked back to my desk with my head high and told myself this was what growth looked like. At lunch, Jade showed me the comments on her post. Some people called me brave for choosing my career. Others wrote that they felt bad for Lucas and could not imagine being rejected like that in public. One comment said I sounded cruel when I joked about already saying yes to my boss. I read that one twice and then laughed it off. I told Jade people loved drama and would forget in a day. I told her that men did not break when a woman said no and that Lucas was a grown adult, not a child. When I got home that evening, Lucas was in the kitchen making pasta. He looked tired but not angry. He asked how my day was, and I said it had been fine and that the team loved the new energy. He asked if everyone had seen the video. I said of course they had, and that it was not a big deal. I told him that if he felt embarrassed, it was because he cared too much about what strangers thought. He went quiet and stirred the pot. Later, when we sat on the sofa, I noticed his phone on the coffee table. The Cedar Cafe reminder glowed on the screen for the next day. I asked in a light tone if he had a date I should know about. He said it was just a personal meeting and that it was nothing I needed to worry about. I laughed and said he was copying me now, trying to look mysterious. He did not rise to it. He just picked up the phone, tapped the screen and set it face down again. The next evening he dressed a little nicer than usual, put on cologne and said he was going out for that meeting. I asked if it was about work. He said it was about his life. I said he was being dramatic and that he should not keep secrets if he wanted this relationship to heal. He answered that he was not the one who made our private life into public content. That stung. So I told him he was acting like a victim and that no one respected men who sulked instead of competing. He looked at me for a long moment, then said he would be back later and left. I imagined him sitting in some cafe talking to a friend, complaining about me. I told myself that was fine because I had my own circle too. I texted Mara and sent her the link to the video, expecting her to cheer. She wrote back that it made her feel a little sad because Lucas had looked so hopeful. I rolled my eyes and told her she was too soft. I said I needed a partner on my level, not a man who thought a ring was the main prize. When Lucas came home that night, he did not start an argument. He asked if I had eaten, and I said I had. He asked if I wanted anything from the store. I said no. His voice was calm, almost flat. He went to the bathroom, washed his face, then came back and sat down in the chair opposite me instead of beside me on the sofa. I waited for him to ask again about Roland or to beg me to explain. He did not. He just watched the news, then said he was going to bed early. That became a pattern over the next days. He stopped pushing for big talks. When I made sharp comments, he did not snap back. He listened, then changed the subject to bills or chores. Sometimes he went to bed hours before me, leaving me alone in the living room with my phone lighting up from late messages. The distance in his eyes grew, but I decided that meant he was too weak to face the problem. I told myself he had shut down to punish me, and that I was the mature one for still keeping us together. One night, as he walked past me to the hallway, I saw his phone light again. A small event sat on his calendar screen, labelled Meeting Personal, set to repeat. He did not see me looking. I felt a flicker of unease and then killed it quickly. If he wanted to play that game, he would only prove my point in the end. I thought I could always pull him back when I chose. The first time I really felt the crowd turn warm around me instead of around us was a few weeks later at another rooftop drink night. It was supposed to be casual, just a Friday, we survived the week thing. I leaned on the rail with Jade, looking down at the city, and she showed me how many saves and shares the proposal video had. She said people loved my line and called it iconic. I laughed and said the internet finally understood me. She did not repeat the few comments that called me cold, and I did not ask. A couple of the guys from design came over and told me they had never seen a man shut down like that in real life. They said Lucas's face had been brutal to watch, but they said it like it was a movie review, not real pain. I told them he was fine, that we had talked and he knew I had to choose my career right now. I said a strong man should be proud to stand next to a woman like me. They nodded, a little unsure, but I liked the feel of their eyes on me. Roland joined us with a drink in his hand and joked that he did not know he was now the one people thought I had said yes to. He said he hoped I would still say yes when he threw insane deadlines at me. I told him he already knew the answer because I always delivered. The others laughed. For a moment I felt like the rooftop was mine, like we were all characters in a story where I was the center and Lucas was just a side note. The birthday dinner at Ben and Priya's favourite family restaurant was louder and more crowded. Long tables, kids running between chairs, plates clattering, waiters weaving through. Lucas came with Elin and sat near the middle of the group, mostly quiet. I brought Roland because I thought that would make things easier, like mixing worlds would prove nothing secret was happening. In my head, if everything was out in the open, no one could claim anything serious. People talked over each other, passing dishes and wines. At some point, Ben stood up with his glass and called for a toast. He said he wanted to thank everyone for coming, and that he also wanted to make fun of me for becoming their local celebrity. He mentioned the video, of course. Jade was already holding up her phone before he finished the sentence. Ben joked that when most people get proposed to, they either say yes or no, but I had invented a third answer. Ask my boss. Everyone laughed. Roland lifted his glass and stood too, playing along. He said he was honoured that I chose big ideas over small rings and that some people were better built for the spotlight than others. I smiled wide because I felt his words like a warm coat. I was not thinking about how they landed on anyone else. I made my own joke because that is what people expect from me. I said Lucas was too sweet for battle and that Roland was the one who knew how to push me. I said it in a light voice like a silly line, but it came out sharper than I meant. At least that is what everyone later claimed. When I replay it in my head, I still think it was mostly harmless. But I cannot forget the way the table changed. Some people laughed too loud. Others stared at their plates. Lucas did not say anything. He just cut Elin's food into small pieces and helped her with her drink. She glanced up at me, then at Roland, then at her father, like she was trying to solve a puzzle. Across the table, Helen, who had joined for the dinner, gave me a look that felt like a slap, even though she did not speak. It was the first time I realized she might actually dislike me, not just disapprove. Jade posted a clip of the toast to her story later that night. I saw strangers write that it was painful, that they would die if they were Lucas. I rolled my eyes and told myself they were weak, that they were stuck in small dreams. I told Mara on chat that people like to feel morally superior online and that in real life they would choose someone like me every time. When we got home, Lucas did not start a fight. He helped Elin into her pajamas, read her a short story and kissed her forehead. I listened from the hall and felt annoyed at how gentle he sounded. When he came out, I tried to tease him about sitting like a statue at dinner. I said he made me look bad by being so stiff. He replied that he would not join another event where he was the punchline. His voice was calm, without heat. That made me more angry than any shouting would have. He moved a few of his shirts and some folded clothes into the guest room that night. He said it would make mornings easier because he got up earlier and did not want to wake me. I said it felt like he was moving out in slow motion. He answered that he was just making space. I tried to pull him back into our bedroom, but he gently took my hand off his arm and went down the hall with a small bag. Over the next few days, I noticed other changes. His wallet and keys were no longer in the shared bowl by the door. They were on a small tray in the guest room. When bills came in, he opened them alone and sat at the table with a notebook, checking amounts. He asked me to send my share for certain things directly instead of just letting it all wash through the joint account. I said he was acting like we were roommates. He said he wanted everything to be clear. One evening, I passed the guest room and saw his laptop open on the desk. A spreadsheet filled the screen, with initials and dates in neat rows. Before I could read more, he tapped a key and the window vanished. At almost the same time, his phone on the desk buzzed with an alarm labelled paper drop. He turned it off quickly. A message thread at the top of his screen showed the word follow up, but that was all I saw. I accused him of playing spy games. I said he was making secret lists to twist later. He did not argue. He just said he was organising things so nothing got lost. In the supermarket the next day, I saw a hotel charge on the joint card, a place I did not recognise. For a second, I felt the sting of being copied. Then I decided he was just trying to remind me he could be wanted too, and the thought made me almost smile. At the checkout, our neighbour looked at me, then at the name on the card, then quickly away. When I checked my phone, Jade's story was still looping the birthday toast, and comments kept stacking. Some called me a queen. Some called me heartless. I told myself it did not matter. What mattered was that I was in the center, and Lucas was not. Helen invited us for Sunday dinner at her townhouse, and I knew from the tone of her message that it was not just about food. She said she wanted to see Elin and talk like a family. I told Lucas she was trying to stage an intervention. He said she just wanted to see her granddaughter. I said she always took his side. He said she was allowed to worry. We drove over with Elin in the back, humming to herself, holding a stuffed rabbit by the ear. Inside, the house smelled like roast chicken and herbs, and the table was already set when we arrived. Helen greeted Elin first, then Lucas, and then me. The order was clear, even if she acted polite. Mara came too, with a camera hanging from her neck, saying she wanted to get candid shots of family time. I told her to make sure she caught my good angles. She said she would do her best, but she sounded tired. We sat down, and for a while Helen made small talk about work and school. She asked Lucas how his projects were going. He said they were steady and that he liked having more time with Elin on his own. She asked me about the agency. I said things were busy, but that Roland trusted me with bigger pieces now. I mentioned a late meeting where Roland had stayed to help me run numbers. I wanted her to hear his name and understand my status. Helen did not bite. She just passed the potatoes and nodded. Halfway through the meal, she put down her fork and looked right at me. She asked if I thought the video of the proposal and the birthday toast were funny, or if I understood why some people found them cruel. I said people online loved drama, and that the ones who called me cruel were just jealous. I said times had changed, and that women did not have to cry with joy over rings anymore. Helen answered that jokes are fine until they crush someone's dignity, and that she had watched her son's face in those clips more times than she wanted. The table went quiet. Mara lowered her camera. Lucas shifted in his chair and said he did not want to talk about the past in front of Elin. Helen said the problem was not the past. It was that nothing seemed to stop. She said she kept seeing new small things, posts and stories and photos with Roland that made her uneasy. I told her she was reading too much into friendly teasing and that older generations always panicked when they saw something they did not understand. She said pain was not a new thing and that I was pretending not to see it. At some point, Lucas's phone buzzed, and he quietly excused himself to the hallway. I saw his screen light before he stepped out. The words, "Meeting personal," sat on a reminder block at the top. I could hear only faint sounds through the wall, a low voice and careful pauses. Helen got up to bring more water and passed close enough to hear him say something about schedules and making sure everything was documented. She came back with the jug and did not comment, but her face had gone a shade more serious. When Lucas returned to the table, he was very calm. He asked Elin if she wanted more vegetables. She said no, and he served her some anyway, making her giggle. He thanked his mother for the meal and said they would probably head back early because he had work to finish. He did not look at me when he said it. I felt like a guest in his family, not a partner. The week after that, he started saying no when I mentioned social events that included Roland. I asked if he would come to rooftop drinks on Friday. He said he would be tired and needed to stay home. I invited him to a small after-hours brainstorm at the office. He said he did not want to be part of any more scenes. I told him he was letting people win who wanted us to fail. He said he was done standing in rooms where the joke was built on his shame. He spent more time with Elin without me. He took her to the playground after school. He took her to Helen's on some weekends. He told me he wanted her to feel safe with both parents no matter what happened. I said he was trying to steal her, and he said he was trying to protect her from chaos. His phone was always nearby, face down but never far from his hand. I noticed that when I reached for it once, he simply moved it to his pocket and asked why I was so interested. Elin asked the worst question at the playground one afternoon. She was on the swing while Lucas pushed her, and I stood near the bench scrolling my phone. She asked why people in the videos always laughed when Daddy looked sad and why I stood so close to Roland if Daddy was my husband. I told her people did not understand our jokes and that Roland was just my boss. Lucas said adults sometimes do things that are confusing and that he was sorry she had seen anything that hurt her. She asked if he was going to go away. He told her he would always be her father. I felt attacked by that answer, like he was implying that someone else would not always be there. The children's art show at the community centre made things worse. I arrived with Roland because we had come straight from a meeting. Parents looked up when we walked in together. Some smiles were tight, some eyes dropped to the floor. Roland kept a small distance between us, no touching, no jokes, and I could feel that he was suddenly very aware of how it might appear. One mother asked where Aylin's dad was. I said he was too fragile to come to crowded events lately. The woman raised her eyebrows and changed the subject. Lucas came near the end, calm as always, walking straight to Aylin's painting and praising it. He nodded at Roland without warmth and told Aylin he would take her for ice cream after. I said we should all go together. He said he had already promised her a quiet time, just the two of them. I tried to insist, but he kept his focus on our daughter and did not move toward me. Back home, I accused him of skipping events and then showing up late just to play the hero. I said he was twisting the story and making me look like a careless mother. He said he was tired of conversations that turned everything into a show. He went to the guest room and began sorting papers into careful piles, not reacting to my words. I watched him from the doorway, feeling like the walls were closing in, but still telling myself he was bluffing. HR started sniffing around on a Tuesday, and I still told myself it was about Roland, not me. In the kitchen at work, I was stirring sugar into my coffee when Jade came in and said that Ms. Caro had asked her to send over any public posts that mentioned the agency by name. She said they were doing a review about workplace boundaries and social media. Then she looked at me in that sideways way people do when they know you're in the middle of it. I laughed and said, of course people were jealous. Of course someone was trying to report the proposal video and the birthday toast. I said there was nothing wrong with a bit of fun. Jade scrolled on her phone and said there were screenshots circling, not just of the videos but also of some comments where I joked about having 2 husbands, 1 for work and 1 for home. She asked if I thought Lucas might be the one sending them. I said Lucas would never be that petty. Then I heard my own voice in my head and added that, actually, lately I wasn't sure. It felt safer to make him sound unstable. Jade shrugged and said HR looked serious this time. Later that night, when I came home, Lucas was in the guest room with the door half open. The room had changed. It looked like a small office now, not a spare space. His laptop sat in the middle of the desk, with a spreadsheet filling the screen. Columns of initials and dates marched in straight lines. On one side of the desk he had lined up 3 binders, labelled with simple words: household, utilities, bank. A small USB stick with the day's date written on tape lay next to his mug. I saw a pop-up window appear for a second on his screen. File uploaded successfully. The printer in the corner spit out a single blank page before going silent, like he had just cleared something. I stepped into the doorway and asked if he had started a hobby in paperwork. He tapped a key to minimize the spreadsheet and turned in his chair. He said he was just organizing our life so things were clear. I laughed and said normal people do not turn their guest rooms into archives. He said normal people do not turn their relationships into public jokes. His voice was calm, not sharp, and that unnerved me more than anger would have. I told him he was overreacting and trying to scare me with all this neatness. He shook his head and went back to sorting. Over the next week, his control reached another level. He kept his part of the house spotless. His clothes were folded and stacked, his drawers closed, his chargers wrapped. When bills arrived, he filed them immediately into the right binder. His side of our life looked like a brochure. When I threw my coat on a chair, he would just pick it up later without a word. When I tried to pick a fight, he listened, watched, and walked away. No raised voice, no begging, no long talks about feelings. Just notes. quiet decisions, steady hands. One afternoon, as I was putting on my shoes by the door, his phone buzzed on the counter. The screen showed an alarm called Archive Check 9:10 a.m. A few seconds later, a muted call came in from a private number. He picked it up and stepped onto the balcony, closing the sliding door behind him. I could see his back and his hand moving while he talked in low tones. When he came back in, I asked if he was having an affair now. He said he was talking to people who were helping him understand his options. I laughed like it was the funniest thing I'd heard and told him he was not the type to make big moves. He just looked at me for a moment and said nothing. He started changing small things in the way he spoke. He no longer said we when talking about future plans. He said, "I'll do this," and "you'll handle that," and "Elin will be with me on these days," as if we were already two separate units. In the stairwell, when we crossed paths with Elin between us, he talked only about times and pickups. I would try to pull him into an argument about Roland or my image, and he would say he did not want to fight in front of our daughter. Then he would walk down the steps with her hand in his, and I would stand there holding my irritation like a hot stone. Mara stopped being helpful around this time too. When I asked her to tell Helen I had been with her on a night I was actually out with Roland, she said she wouldn't say anything at all. She told me she was tired of lies and that she did not like how things looked. I accused her of taking Lucas's side. She said she was taking Elin's side. That phrase stuck in my teeth like something I could not spit out. The night everything snapped inside the house was strangely quiet. Elin was asleep. Helen had dropped her off earlier after a day at the park. The dishes were done. The TV was off. Lucas sat in the armchair, his posture straight, but not tense. I walked into the living room ready to unload. I told him I knew he was trying to build a case, that he wanted everyone to see me as the villain. I said he had turned cold, that he barely looked at me, that he was making me look crazy to our friends and family. I told him he was worse than any man who just shouted and got it over with because he was playing a long game. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he took a breath and said he had no interest in calling me names or yelling. He said he had watched me joke about him for long enough and that he had decided not to live inside a show anymore. He said he was not trying to hurt me. He was trying to protect himself and Elin. I snapped that he had no right to take the moral high ground when he had hotel charges on the card and secret meetings in cafes. He replied that everything he had done was within the rules and that it would stay that way. Then he looked at me straight and said something I still hear at night. He said, very evenly, that he was not going to fight with me anymore in this room or any other. He said he was going to handle things properly. He told me he had everything he needed now and that soon things would be clear. His voice did not shake. His hands did not move. It was like he had already stepped into another life and was just informing me. At that moment, Elin padded into the room in her pajamas, rubbing her eyes. He turned to her and softened instantly, asking if she needed water, if she had had a bad dream. I watched him lift her up and carry her back to bed, gentle and quiet. When he came back, he did not restart the talk. He just said that whatever happened next, we would do it in a calm, proper way. 2 weeks later, I walked into the lobby for an HR meeting about Roland. I was practicing lines about misunderstood jokes. Jade waited near the cafe. Ms. Caro stepped out of the elevator, stiff smile ready. Before I could move, a man in a jacket said my full name. I said yes, confused. He held out an envelope and announced it was a divorce petition with temporary orders. Everyone nearby heard. My face went hot as I opened it and saw both our names and words about freezing joint accounts, temporary use of the apartment, and a parenting plan for Elin with a court date in black. Lucas appeared by the security desk, calm. He thanked the man, nodded to HR, and said this was what properly meant. Then he turned toward the elevator.